We live in a world that ceaselessly repeats that the highest goal in life is to share it with someone. Yet what almost no one tells you is how many relationships become invisible prisons, spaces where people find not joy, but exhaustion, emptiness, and a profound disconnection from themselves. Carl Jung once said, "True loneliness is not the absence of companionship, but the inability to share what truly matters." The paradox is that countless individuals, even while in relationships, feel lonelier than ever. Today, I challenge everything you believe about being single, for what you now see as a temporary state or a mistake might instead be your greatest opportunity for freedom, authenticity, and peace. Stay until the end, as I will show you how independence can be the purest path to a fulfilling life. If this message resonates with you, give it a like, subscribe, and join me in this reflection. Imagine this: waking up each day without explanations, without negotiating your dreams, without molding yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. Just you, your time, your rules. Why does this idea feel so uncomfortable? Because we've been indoctrinated to view singlehood as a problem to solve, a sign of incompleteness, as if lacking a partner means you are broken. But what if that idealized relationship doesn't enrich your life, but drains it? Jungian psychology emphasizes that relationships built on fear rather than mutual growth often mirror our unresolved inner conflicts. These bonds become projections of our insecurities, trapping us in cycles of dependency. To break free, we must first confront the shadows we've buried, the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This truth cuts deepest in matters of love. The raw reality is that many people cling to relationships not out of love, but fear. Fear of emptiness, fear of judgment, fear of confronting their own shadows. Yet here's the truth few dare to voice. Loneliness is never the real problem. The problem is the wrong company. How often have you felt you give more than you receive? How often has your relationship transformed from a refuge into a daily burden? Society prefers to silence an uncomfortable truth. Being accompanied does not guarantee happiness, and being alone does not mean you are fractured. Consider this. How many couples share a bed, but not a heartbeat? How many people wear public smiles while privately feeling like strangers to their partners? Loneliness is not the absence of another. It is the absence of connection. If your peace resides in solitude, why surrender it? Take Teresa's story. For 67 years, her life revolved around others. She married young, raised children, managed a household, and devoted every moment to her husband's needs, believing self-sacrifice was the purest form of love. For decades, she lived for her family, applauded by a society that glorifies self-erasure. But what happens when everything you've poured yourself into vanishes? When her children left and her husband passed, Teresa found herself engulfed in a silence she had never known. Her home, filled with memories, felt hollow. Worse, she felt hollow. At first, loneliness consumed her. Days blurred into weeks as she stared at walls, convinced her life had lost all meaning. Who was she without the roles society had assigned her? This mirrors Jung's concept of the persona, the mask we wear to meet societal expectations. Teresa had spent decades prioritizing her roles as wife and mother, but beneath the persona lay an unexpressed self, starved of attention. Her crisis wasn't just loneliness, it was the collapse of an identity built entirely on external validation. But here, her story takes an unexpected turn. Sometimes life strips away everything you thought you needed to return you to your essence. One day, impulsively, Teresa enrolled in a pottery class, a small act of rebellion. For the first time in decades, she did something for herself. As clay clung to her hands and laughter flowed with newfound friends, something stirred within her. She wasn't just shaping pottery, she was reshaping herself. Teresa realized a truth most discover too late. Her happiness never depended on her husband, children, or past sacrifices. It lay in her power to build a life for herself, by herself. Now I ask you, if tomorrow everything familiar disappeared, if the people beside you vanished, leaving only you, would you still feel whole? If the answer is no, then perhaps it's not love you lack, but a reunion with your own soul. Why do so many awaken to this truth only when it's too late? Why is solitude vilified as an enemy rather than embraced as an opportunity? Because we've been taught to fear it. We're sold the lie that being alone equals inadequacy, that a life unshared is a life unlived. But what if this narrative is a trap, designed to keep you chained to relationships that stifle your growth? Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, articulated this with brutal clarity. The last of human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. When you are alone, free from external noise, you discover the power to define yourself without interference. Imagine auditing your relationships like a financial ledger. Which ones energize you? Which drain you? How many do you maintain out of habit, comfort, or fear of solitude? Most avoid these questions because the answers threaten their illusions. Confronting them might mean releasing people you've clung to for years. But here's the raw truth. Surrounding yourself with the wrong people estranges you from yourself. So ask, do you truly need a partner to be happy, or is this a script society implanted in you? This phenomenon, which Jung called collective unconscious conformity, reveals how societal norms override individual authenticity. We perform happiness to avoid scrutiny, even when our souls scream for liberation. The tragedy isn't solitude, it's the lie we live to avoid it. Consider Eleanor Roosevelt. She was a president's wife, but her legacy wasn't forged through that title. It was carved through her independence. Her influence and freedom arose not from her role as a spouse, but from her unwavering commitment to her purpose. Authentic connections aren't born from need, but from wholeness. Solitude is where you meet your true self, unshaped by others' expectations. Here's a truth few want to hear. Silence is power, but we've been conditioned to flee it. We drown in distractions, social media, notifications, endless noise, because silence forces a reckoning. What if you discover the life you've built isn't yours, but a performance for others? Yet if you dare to sit with that silence, if you endure the discomfort of unfiltered self-confrontation, magic happens. Answers emerge, ones you didn't know you sought. You realize the most vital love is self-love. As Rumi wrote, you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop. But will you keep dimming your light in unfulfilling relationships, or dare to shine alone? The real fear isn't loneliness, it's realizing your relationships persist out of inertia. Love, once vibrant, has become routine. You stay because the void of loss seems more painful than the weight of staying. Ask yourself, if your relationship ended today, could you define who you are outside of it? Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you are, not who the world demands. But how can you find your true self if you've contorted your life to fit another's mold? Jung's shadow work becomes essential here. To individuate, to become whole, we must integrate the parts of ourselves we've disowned. For Teresa, pottery wasn't just a hobby. It was an act of reclaiming her repressed creativity, a step toward reconciling her shadow with her conscious self. Some awaken at 40, others at 50. Tragically, many die without ever asking the question, if your time were finite, if life were measured in months, not years, would you remain where you are? This is the question we evade, yet it's the only one that matters. When time becomes scarce, societal expectations fade. Only your truth remains. For many, fulfillment isn't found in a partner but in deeper waters. the serenity of a conflict-free home, the liberation of unnegotiated decisions, the joy of a life untethered from compromise. Yet society rarely champions this path. We're taught that singlehood is a flaw, romantic love the ultimate prize, and aging alone a failure. But ask, are these beliefs truly yours or inherited? Conscious singlehood is not loneliness. It is audacious authenticity. It declares that your worth isn't tied to marital status. This isn't rejecting love, but rejecting the lie that love completes you. Eleanor Roosevelt's life proved that purpose transcends roles. Why then does singlehood terrify so many? Because what they truly fear isn't absence of company, but confrontation with silence. We're a society addicted to noise, social media, TV, endless chatter, anything to avoid the void. Yet the paradox is, the more you flee silence, the further you stray from yourself. Many desperately chasing relationships aren't seeking love, they're seeking distraction, a salve for inner voids they refuse to face. But when love becomes anesthesia, not choice, ask, do you want a relationship, or are you fleeing yourself? If you cannot find peace in your own company, you'll never find it in another's. Jung distilled this: who looks outside, dreams; who looks inside, awakes. Solitude's power lies here. When you cease seeking external validation, in relationships, applause, distractions, and turn inward, transformation begins. Happiness was never about finding someone, it was about finding yourself. Now, answer, are you ready to face your silence? Or will you keep searching the world for what only exists within? If all you've been taught about singlehood is a lie, if solitude isn't emptiness but a canvas, what would change? Society romanticizes companionship as life's ultimate goal. This cultural narrative is rooted in what Jung termed the archetype of the couple, a universal symbol ingrained in myths and media. But archetypes, when blindly followed, become cages. True liberation comes when we transcend societal scripts and write our own stories. Yet many stay, coupled not from desire but dread of solitude. They cling to relationships like life rafts, oblivious to the truth. The problem isn't lack of company, but lack of direction. Jung's individuation, the quest to discover oneself beyond external influences, remains elusive because few ask, who am I when no one is watching? Solitude strips away excuses. You cannot blame others for your discontent, hide behind a failing relationship, or delay growth waiting for the one. Only you remain. If you learn to cherish solitude, if its tranquility outweighs hollow companionship, you'll see singlehood not as a waiting room, but a sanctuary. It is space to rebuild, to explore passions unfiltered, to decide without justification. Yet most fail here, not because solitude is hard, but because they fear it. They mute silence with distractions, hop between empty relationships, and delude themselves into needing others to validate their existence. In this desperate dance, they abandon the one person who will always remain themselves. Viktor Frankl wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Solitude offers this chance. Alone, you reconnect with buried dreams, rediscover forgotten passions, and craft a life that's yours, not a compromise. Yet modernity bombards us with distractions, social media, streaming, notifications, to ensure we never face this truth. If the noise ceases, only your voice remains. For many, this terrifies. It means confronting avoided questions. Am I living my life or a script others wrote? Teresa avoided these questions for decades. She believed love meant self-erasure, that her happiness could wait, that her purpose was to serve her family. But when her home emptied and routine's clamor faded, she discovered her life had always belonged to her. Solitude wasn't an end, it was a rebirth. For the first time, she was the author. Many today feel an inner fracture. Relationships once meaningful now feel burdensome. Bonds once fulfilling now hollow. The pivotal question arises, what if you stopped seeking others and started discovering yourself? Few ask this, for solitude's prospect petrifies them. But why fear independence, the gateway to authenticity? Because a person whole unto themselves cannot be manipulated. They don't choose from fear, settle for less, or cling to mediocrity to mute their voids. Jung taught, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But how can you know yourself if you've never existed outside a relationship? If every step was for others, every sacrificed dream was to avoid discomfort, every decision prioritized we over I, what remains when all that dissolves? Frankl observed, those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. Yet that why cannot hinge on another person. Observe how many lose themselves in relationships, silencing their essence to sustain broken narratives. The deepest loneliness isn't solitude, it's being with someone yet feeling invisible to yourself. Teresa grasped this in her pottery class, a metaphor for self-discovery. Happiness wasn't in her roles as wife or mother, but in the self she'd buried. You needn't wait 67 years. Frankl's logotherapy teaches that meaning isn't found in circumstances, but in our response to them. Teresa's awakening wasn't about pottery. It was about choosing to respond to her emptiness with curiosity rather than despair. Her transformation began the moment she asked, "What do I truly desire?" A question we must all confront. If you're still listening, part of you already knows you don't need another to be whole. Happiness never depended on a relationship. Peace was always within, waiting where you least thought to look. But there's more. What no one admits, singlehood isn't a void, it's a frontier. Society paints companionship as life's pinnacle, yet many couple out of fear, not desire. They cling to life rafts, blind to the truth. The problem isn't lack of company, but lack of purpose. Jung's individuation, the journey to selfhood beyond external labels, is stifled because few ask, who am I when no one's watching? Solitude demolishes excuses. You can't blame others, hide behind drama, or postpone growth awaiting the one. Only you remain. If you embrace solitude's clarity, you'll see it not as a purgatory but a privilege, a space to rebuild, explore passions, and choose freely. Yet most stuff silence with noise, leap between hollow relationships, and abandon the one constant, themselves. Frankl wrote, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude. Solitude grants this freedom, to see it as a curse or catalyst to resist or grow. You can keep believing a partner holds your happiness hostage, or dare to realize you are the key. The ultimate question, the one most flee, is, what do you truly want? In the end, what matters isn't society's scripts or others' expectations. It's your peace, your freedom to live authentically, your capacity for joy without dependency. Jung's words echo, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Solitude is awakening, a chance to live undiluted by others' noise, to build a life aligned with your soul, not societal blueprints. At life's end, it won't matter if you were accompanied or alone. What will matter is whether you lived, whether you had the courage to honor your inner voice, even when it defied the world, whether you found peace in your own presence, rather than begging it from others. If this message stirs you, if it ignites questions you've suppressed, then this dialogue has served its purpose. If it resonates, don't forget to like and subscribe. This supports the channel and helps others confront the questions that truly matter. Thank you for staying until the end. If Teresa's story resonated with you, consider this. Jung believed that the second half of life is dedicated to reclaiming the self we sacrificed in the first half. Whether you're 25 or 65, it's never too late to begin. Remember, your most vital relationship is the one with yourself. See you in the next video.